Let me ask you a question no one ever dared to ask you. A question that's been buried so deep inside, it's been whispering in the dark for years. What if everything you do every single day makes no real sense? I'm not talking about grand philosophies, not about destiny or divine purpose. I mean something simpler and far more disturbing. Your alarm goes off. You open your eyes. You get out of bed, not because you're alive, but because you're programmed. You move like a machine, efficient, predictable, silent, and yet, somewhere inside you, something doesn't fit. That restless ache, that quiet dissonance, like background static that never fades. You feel it, don't you? That your life is being steered by a hand that isn't yours, that you've been following a path laid out by someone else, and everyone around you just calls it normal. But what if that discomfort wasn't a flaw? What if that noise inside you was your essence, trying to scream? Not anxiety, not laziness, not confusion, but truth, unfiltered, uninvited, undeniable. Since childhood, they trained you to become someone, but they never asked who you wanted to be. They spoke of goals, success, achievement, but always as a transaction. You had to earn your worth, performance, deliver, obey. From the first classroom to your last paycheck, everything was a rehearsal for labor. As if work was your final destination, as if existence itself was a business plan. But what if it's not? What if all of this, the deadlines, the titles, the grind, was just an elaborate play, a theater of productivity where everyone follows a script they never wrote? They told you work would fulfill you, that achievement would complete you. But here you are, soul wrinkled, spirit numb, days repeating like a broken record. And the cruelest part? The moment you stop, even briefly, the world punishes you. If you don't produce, you're invisible. If you don't hustle, you fall behind. If you're not useful, you're wasting time. Do you see it now? This wasn't a system, it was a blackmail. They made you believe that rest is laziness, that joy without purpose is childish, that watching the world without chasing it is failure. But who decided that? Who said your life only has value if it can be turned into output? And maybe now, finally, you're ready to ask the question they never wanted you to ask. What if life is not about doing more, but about being real? This is where the crack begins, the first fracture in the polished mask. That subtle fault line where truth starts to seep through, not with noise, but with a whisper, a forgotten suspicion, buried for generations, ignored by tradition, dismissed by progress, now begins to stir. What if the human being was never meant to live like this? What if all this obsession with performance, productivity, efficiency isn't evolution, but entrapment? A cage not built of iron, but of invisible bars, expectations, deadlines, routines disguised as normal life. Have you ever felt it? That quiet panic beneath the productivity? That strange sensation that while you're checking every box, you're quietly running from yourself? That with every productive day, some deeper part of you, the wild part, the instinctual, the free, gets quieter. And have you noticed how the things that make you feel most alive are always placed last? Article wonder, pleasure, stillness. They're luxuries now, rewards, not rights. You only earn them when the important things are done. But what if the important never ends? What if that tomorrow, where you'll finally live, finally breathe, finally feel, never comes? Look around. Everyone's moving. Everyone's rushing. Everyone's performing. But no one knows why. Because the modern world doesn't teach you to live. It trains you to function, to be efficient, to be useful, to feel guilty every time you stop. And when silence feels dangerous, when rest feels wrong, when stillness feels like failure, you know they've won. They've rewritten your nature. They've taught you to abandon the very part of yourself that doesn't produce. But to be human, deeply, truly human, is not to generate output. It's to feel, to waste time without shame, to stare at the sky with no agenda, to dance with no music, to laugh without a reason, to cry without a script. That part of you, the one that doesn't sell, doesn't scale, doesn't serve any profit, you let it wither. You buried it in schedules, in spreadsheets, in striving, and every time you feel something's missing, that's it. That's you knocking from underneath the life you were never meant to live, and just when the silence becomes unbearable, comes a voice, unfashionable, uninvited, but ferociously honest. Georges Bataille, not a teacher of success, not a prophet of goals, not a preacher of discipline. He didn't want to make you better. He wanted you to be free. He wanted you to let it all go, so you could finally remember what it means to be alive, that you would dare to turn your head toward the forbidden, to face what no one else dares to name, to accept the possibility that your life doesn't need to serve a purpose. That meaning, true, unfiltered meaning, is not found in work or output or utility, but in waste, in excess, in wild, directionless experience. And it's here, right here, that the ground starts to shake beneath you. Because this is not just a critique of capitalism. This is not an argument, it's a rupture, a declaration of war against the entire architecture of modern life. What if the life you're living is a carefully constructed illusion? What if everything you've been told was normal is actually just a tamed, housebroken version of who you were meant to be? Don't look away. Don't scroll. Don't run to distraction, because what's coming next won't comfort you. It will cut you open. It will force you to ask, why have I done all this? For whom? And at what cost? This isn't just a reflection. It's a rupture in the mirror, a fracture in the mask you've worn for so long, you forgot it wasn't your face. Yes, we'll speak of work, but not in the language of ambition. We'll speak of productivity, but from the mouth of the abyss. We're going somewhere darker now, to the bottom of the soul, where time isn't measured by what you've accomplished, but by how much life you've wasted in the name of being useful. And if you stay, if you dare to sit in this discomfort, you won't see your life the same way again. Because maybe, just maybe, you haven't been living. You've just been functioning. And now that you know, what will you do with that truth? Most people never realize there is a part of you that's never been touched by labor, never corrected, never scheduled, never trained to serve. It is wild, it is undomesticated, it does not care for deadlines or metrics. And yet, it is the most human part of you. It awakens when you watch the sky change color without once checking the time. It stirs when you laugh for no reason, when you feel joy that has no reward, when you feel alive without having achieved a single thing. That forgotten part, the sacred, useless, untamed core, is what Georges Bataille tried to rescue from the rubble of a world obsessed with control. And the most unsettling truth of all, that part of you is not dead. It's just been locked away, waiting. And every day you continue obeying the command to be useful, you bury it a little deeper, that raw, untamed part of you. It doesn't vanish. It just grows louder. It speaks in the language of unease, in the anxiety you can't name, in the sadness that has no clear source, in that quiet ache of being alive, but not fully. Georges Bataille called it waste, but not waste as in garbage, not consumption for the sake of ego. He meant existential waste, a sacred rebellion, doing something for no reason, not because it gets you somewhere, not because it earns you anything, but because it reminds you you are human. And here's the fracture point. Modern society doesn't know what to do with anything that's not useful. If you're not producing, if you're not optimizing, if you're not grinding, you're not just irrelevant, you're a problem. That's where the manipulation begins. It's not enough that you work. You must believe that rest is sin, that joy without profit is laziness, that time without a task is time wasted. They whisper it so often you start believing it, until one day you can't even enjoy your own leisure without guilt choking the joy. You've been trained to fear stillness, but it runs deeper than habits. It infects your very sense of self. How many times have you introduced yourself not by who you are, but by what you do? I'm a designer. I'm a lawyer. I'm a doctor. And if one day that title vanishes, what are you then? No answer, because they never taught you that you are more than your job, more than your output, more than your productivity. So you become a borrowed identity, a role on loan from the system. You exist only as long as you're useful. And when that use expires, you're quietly discarded, like a file no longer needed, like a machine that no longer runs. But it gets worse. This same logic poisons how you love, how you connect, how you relate. You begin to see people as assets, connections, opportunities. How many relationships are sustained only for professional gain? How many conversations are born only because someone wants something? We've forgotten how to just be with someone, to sit without agenda, to speak without strategy, to care without calculation. And that's the quiet tragedy of our time. We have lost the art of being unproductive together, the joy of simply existing side by side. No goals, no exchange, just presence. And if that still feels uncomfortable, if that still feels like a waste, then you know exactly how deep the wound goes. But Bataille understood. He saw through the illusion of balance. He knew the human soul doesn't crave order. It craves excess, not repetition, but rupture, not routine, but the explosion of self. That's why he spoke of the inner experience, a descent into the deepest layers of being, where there's no utility, no return on investment, only intensity, a place where you stop functioning and start feeling, where you aren't performing a role, you're simply alive. And that's the terrifying freedom most avoid. Because here's the truth. You were never made to live inside the machinery of performance. You were meant to fall apart sometimes, to weep without cause, to scream into the void, to vanish without explanation, and return only when your soul is ready. But how can you allow yourself that when your calendar is booked until next month? How can you be wild when you've got meetings every Tuesday? Do you see it now? The system doesn't need chains. It doesn't need cages. It only needs your consent to stay busy. A blinking notification replaces the whip. A to-do list replaces the shackle. No one needs to imprison you, because the prison is already inside. It's built from guilt, from anxiety, from that gnawing fear of being useless. And here's the most perverse twist. You feed it yourself. You run from the emptiness by cramming your day with tasks. You drown the silence because you're afraid of what it might say. And so you reach for noise, for stimulation, for another productivity hack, another article, another thing to check off, just to avoid yourself. Because somewhere inside, you know, there's a fracture, a buried ache, something left behind in the rush to stay useful. And when it all goes quiet, when the world pauses, when the phone dies, when the last task is done, you feel it, that twist in your gut, that strange discomfort you can't name. That's not burnout. That's your real self, tapping on the walls you built around it, asking why you locked it away, why you left it to starve in the basement of your own life. But listen, not all is lost. There is a way back, not easy, not fast, but true. And it begins with one decision: to stop obeying, to stop measuring your worth in output, to stop mistaking rest for failure, to stop searching for meaning in your job title and start seeking it in your experience, in the stillness, in the useless, in the wild. That's where your soul has always been waiting. It doesn't begin with revolutions. It begins with something smaller, simpler, quieter. Listening to a song without multitasking, walking without a destination, staring at a wall just because, doing something not to get somewhere, not to achieve, not to earn, but simply because you feel like it. No justification, no monetization, no performance. Because in that uselessness, that sacred voluntary waste of time, a different kind of life begins to breathe. One that isn't for sale, one that doesn't beg for permission to exist. And that's where everything shifts. When you realize you don't have to earn your existence. You don't have to deserve your rest. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. That is where real freedom begins. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the deeper freedom of not needing to do anything to justify your being. Bataille spoke of the shame of waste because he knew this world has trained you to feel guilty when you're not producing. But he also knew that guilt is the first gate, the threshold, the wall, and only by walking through it can you begin to truly live. So here you are, standing before it, guilt in one hand, freedom in the other. Don't wait. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the world to understand, because most won't. They're still asleep, still hypnotized by the myth that value lives in doing. But you've already seen the crack. You've already heard the voice. You've already felt the ache that whispers. This can't be all there is. And once you've heard that whisper, you can't unhear it. So the only question left is this. Do you dare? Do you dare to stop being useful? Do you dare to reclaim the part of you that serves no purpose, but means everything? Because if you've made it this far, it's not an accident. You're not here by chance. You're not watching this because you're bored. You're here because something inside you, something old, something sacred, is beginning to wake up. Even if you don't say it, even if you can't explain it, even if you don't have the words for it yet, there's a part of you that's done with just functioning, that refuses to survive Monday to Friday just to breathe for 2 days on the weekend. And the most brutal, most beautiful truth, that part of you, it doesn't want answers. It doesn't need steps or systems or methods. It only wants one thing: space, silence, freedom. Let it have them. Let me tell you something most people will never dare to say, because saying it breaks the spell. When you stop producing for the system begins to dismantle inside you. Quietly, subtly, without fireworks, without applause, not with a scream, but with a whisper. One day you'll stop glancing at the clock with dread. Another day you'll forget to explain why you did nothing. And in those unnoticed moments, something ancient will begin to stir. Your ability to just be, to breathe, to exist, without performance, without a plan. Because the real revolution isn't about tearing the system down. It's about emptying yourself of it, cleansing your inner space of the voice that says you must always earn your worth. It's about decolonizing your attention, freeing your body from the leash of constant doing. And if the world burns while you dance barefoot in your room, laughing for no reason, then let it burn. Because that moment of senseless joy is more alive than 1,000 well-organized days of hollow labor. And no, this isn't about running to the mountains or quitting everything or rejecting all structure. It's about reclaiming something sacred, the right to exist without being useful, the courage to be the anomaly, to hold on to your strangeness, even when the world calls it failure. And if it scares you, good, let it. Because fear here is no enemy. It's a threshold. It's a sign you're getting close to the place most never dare to enter. And if you cross it, there is no going back. Freedom is not clean. It's not organized. It's not easy to fit into a calendar. Freedom is messy, unruly, wild, but it is yours and it's waiting. Not in an office, not in your email inbox, not on your resume, but in the place you've avoided the most, inside you. Now I offer you a challenge. Not the kind you do to impress, not to grow your brand, not to become more efficient, a real challenge. Go to the comments and write this: I didn't come to serve. I came to feel. It's not a slogan. It's not a trend. It's a rupture, a scar carved into silence, proof that you were here, that something cracked open inside you. And if this moved you, if it stirred something you've buried, if it brought up discomfort you usually scroll past, then subscribe. But know this: we're not here to motivate. We're not here to sell you comfort wrapped in cliches. We're here to confront, to unearth, to tear off the polished mask and expose what's been festering underneath. This place is not for everyone. It's for the ones who are done pretending, for the ones who feel something is off, but can't quite name it. It's for those who want to live without permission. So if you're one of them, stay. And now, before the world pulls you back in, I'll leave you with this. Turn off your phone, close this tab, Don't save this moment. Don't post about it. Don't even think about what it means. Just sit in silence, in stillness, in uselessness. Do nothing. Think nothing. Let the world burn if it must. But for 5 minutes, don't serve. Because in that fragile, fleeting moment where you resist the pressure to perform, you'll feel something rare, something raw. You'll feel alive. See you on the next ascent, or maybe not. Depends on whether you're still obeying.